future of education. From bulky computers to iPads, from clunky overhead projectors to intuitive smartboards, technology and education have always gone hand in hand. Who am I? Well, I'm Ken Zafke. I graduated from Brown College in 1999. I've got a degree in electronics and computer technology. I worked here at Thomson Reuters for just a little over 13 years now up in customer service. And I work at the Minnesota State Fair every summer as an arcade technician, fixing and wrenching on games, unclocking coin jams, and running virtual reality as well, which I think makes me qualified to come here and talk to you all about virtual reality. Those are my two little kids in there, that's Elise and Ruben. So why are we here? Evolution of technology leading up to virtual reality. The first attempts to create virtual reality. Then virtual reality comes into the home. Then we have the modern explosion of virtual reality, and finally, modern day applications of virtual reality in education, entertainment, and community. Thing is though, technology needs to start somewhere and it needs to grow, and growth takes time. Once upon a time, for all you youngins in here, telephones used to be plugged into the wall and they used to have cords on them. Cassette tapes had to be rewound. Video or floppy disks had to be taken care of and carried, and that's not very fun. And then on top of that, pagers. Somebody would send you a number and you would call them back, not knowing what they want. May God have mercy on you if there's a 911 after the number that they send you, because that means they need to talk to you fast. Video games has also grown up over the years. We've come a long way since the Atari 2600, from the Nintendo, which I would argue still holds up, to the Nintendo 64, handheld gaming, and all the way up to your modern Xboxes, PlayStations, and even your virtual realities. But with evolution comes progress. Now I've got one of these. It does all the things everything in the previous picture did, only mine's smaller and faster. But virtual reality had to start somewhere. And there's a lot of disputes as to where virtual reality actually started from. A lot of that surrounds the definition of what is an artificial reality. When you're looking into a painting that's in perspective, are you looking into a different world? When you're watching a play on the stage and you're supposed to suspend disbelief and see only the actors and actresses on stage, is that an artificial reality? The experts can't really come up with an answer on that one, so I decided to pick the Viewmaster as the one that started it all. The Viewmaster was originally created in 1938. We did have 3D pictures before then. Stereoscopes have been around since the late 1800s. And what you would do with the stereoscopes, they used to have them in penny arcades. You'd go in there, you'd literally put a penny in, look in a little picture, and watch a little 3D movie. Because it's got the two eyes on it there, you can see the 3D image. Well, progress does happen, like I mentioned. And here we have a picture of the Sensorama, and like the caption says, that really is the name of it. This was created in 1962. It's an electromechanical device, which means it does not have any integrated circuits in it or anything like that. Everything that runs in there is run and driven by belts, by timers, by capacitors and switches. This had a color display with two screens on it, so you got the 3D image with both your eyes. But for 1962, having two color TVs in there, that was a pretty big deal at the time. They had wind that was inside of there that would basically blow air at your face when you're watching the simulations. It had stereo sound on it, it had smell emitters, and it even had a motional chair. It sounded like an emotional chair, a motional chair. What it would simulate for you is it would simulate things like a motorcycle ride through New York City. So you're holding on to it and you're feeling the bike move in time with the movie, and you're smelling the diesel fumes and things like that, and feeling the wind blow you in the face. And I don't even want to know what they used back then to create those diesel fumes, but it probably wasn't healthy. It was a really ahead of its time device, but as you can see, nobody's going to put that inside of their house. I'm sure somebody did, but I wouldn't. So we move forward, and this is where virtual reality really starts to get its feet underneath them. Virtual reality throughout the 1970s and 80s was primarily used for medical training. Doctors can literally use virtual reality to practice surgery before cutting into an actual person. Thank God for it. Space exploration, NASA put a lot of effort into researching virtual reality so they could learn to fly autonomous robots while they're working in outer space. Even deep sea exploration, they use virtual reality goggles so they can drive submersibles. And pilots, of course, use them for flight simulators. And this is where we got some real steps forward in virtual reality. This is where it stopped being just a picture or something like that, or just a passive experience. When JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, designed the first virtual reality world that you could actually interact with. You could walk around, and it was just a little 3D model of a town, but nobody had ever seen anything like that before, where you're actually interacting with the world. And then in 1979, the Large Expanse Extra Perspective, or LEAP, if you will, which is what we do have in the picture here, was created. This is the first time that virtual reality fully encapsulates your entire view, okay? So now all of a sudden, you're really breaking the wall and going into the technology, because previous to this, what you would see is you'd see little black outlines around the monitors. And more often than not, they were usually color CRT monitors. So that's where we got the blueprint for what has become the modern day virtual reality. Now, game companies were all over this. 1990 to 2000, they tried just about everything to get virtual reality into the home. 1990 in Rad Racer in the upper left-hand corner, if you push the select button on your Nintendo control, it would split the screen into red and blue view, and you'd use actual red and blue 3D glasses for the 3D effect. It did not work at all. Below that, the next up was Sega Genesis with their Sega VR. Well, it was a great attempt because they actually had the screens in front of your eyes at a home device here. But the problem is Sega was a 16-bit system. It didn't have any applications or games that really made this the must-have application. And then we come to what we would call the colossal failure of the Virtual Boy decided by Nintendo. They released this in 1995 and canceled it 9 months later.
Oh.
Now, to its credit, the 3D effect in this was excellent, and they did a really good job of creating levels where you really play with those 3D effects. The problem is eye strain. Number one, the screen inside this thing is nothing but red and black. We could do a lot better than that. Number two is it wasn't actually portable. And what you see there is you see it's not plugged into a wall or anything because it runs on 8 AA batteries, and you can only imagine how quickly it chewed through those. But it didn't actually support itself. There was no way to actually put it on your head, so you had to really just hold yourself against a table like this. And I played one at a convention earlier in the spring, and it's still awful. It has not aged well. So here they are, the first attempts at bringing virtual reality into the home. There they go. So 2000 to 2010, not a ton happened with virtual reality, at least not for commercial and home use, because these guys pushed the technology as far as they possibly could go with it. And beyond that, it was just too cost prohibitive. And on top of that, they didn't have the screen technology that we needed to make virtual reality truly a pleasant experience yet. As I note here, there's a simulation sickness that happens at less than 60 frames per second. Your body is used to seeing smooth motion when you turn your head around like that. And if you don't see that when you're in virtual reality, it creates a disagreement with what your eyes are seeing between what your ears are feeling. Ergo, you get motion sickness, or in this case, simulation sickness. So movies typically run at 24 frames per second. Video games, the real high-end games, your first-person shooters, your racing games, they can get up to 60 frames per second. They struggle with it sometimes. Virtual reality, to be truly viable, needs to run at 90 frames per second. And the technology just simply didn't exist yet. So not a ton happened in 2000 and 2010. But then, in 2010, Oculus Rift was announced, and this is the first of what we would know as the modern day virtual reality headset. I mean, this is the one where it's gonna be this nice mounted thing here, you got it strapped onto your head like that, and they demonstrated it live at E3 in 2012, and I remember watching this, and I instantly saw this. That's the future. Valve Corporation the next year discovered what's called a low persistence display. This reduced screen lag on the screens inside of the virtual reality, and this is the key technology that helped kick the frames per second from 60 frames up to 90 frames per second. This is the first step towards bringing virtual reality around and making it viable for the average person. And they gave this technology to all companies making virtual reality. They did not charge for it. They still haven't released Half-Life 3, but they did give that away. A couple of years later, I got to actually try it myself at the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2014. And this was on what's called dev kit of the Oculus Rift, the one in 2012 there. The kit really wasn't ready for production hardware, but they had a Kickstarter campaign where you could buy one of these kits, and if you know about programming, you can write your own 3D programming games and start to play with it here. Pursuant to the simulation sickness I was mentioning, this one ran at 32 frames per second, and it was amazing. It was the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life. So granted, I did get a little bit of the motion sickness with it here because of that frame issue. However, the simulation I got to try in this was a roller coaster simulator. And what they did is they had a fixed chair, similar to our brown chairs in the back there, and they would sit you down in it. There was a little rumble pack attached to the back of it just to kind of get a little bit of haptic feedback. And you put this on, and next thing you know, you're on a roller coaster, and you're going tick, 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 and you go right through the whole thing. And you can look around, and you can see the whole amusement park world around you. And I have never seen anything like this before in my life. I could not believe this was real, except for the motion sickness. But I gotta tell you, when I came out of this thing, the first thing I did is text all my tech buddies, my friends. I just tried VR, the future is real, it's happening. And I was blown away. So 2016, PlayStation decided to step up to the plate and take a swing at this, and they released the PlayStation VR. That is what I have at home currently, and it's amazing. I've done and seen so many wonderful things with that, which we will talk about shortly. But now I want to talk about the HTC Vive, because this is a virtual reality set that is very near and dear to my heart, because this is what I get to work with at the Minnesota State Fair. And I've got a great little clip here of the fair here for you guys.
You know, the great thing about the fair, I mean, there's so much going on out here. It can really lead to some sensory overload. There's all kinds of wonderful sights and sounds and smells and tastes out here. But there is one place that can really trick the senses, and boy, oh boy, did Amelia ever get fooled.
When the game launches, you're going to hit the start.
Okay.
So that fits on. Okay.
So I'm just basically wax on, wax off. I'm like doing a little kung fu.
That's a game called Beat Saber.
I feel like Rafael Nadal. Love it. That's awesome. I feel like I just played a set with Roger Federer.
Terrified of heights. I want to be very clear.
It's this high. Look, it's this high.
This is a game called
It's like an
Richie's
inch.
Plank
You're mine.
Experience.
I know her. My best advice: turn down your volume.
Sorry guys, I'm keeping it up.
You're going up a long way, lady.
Oh my God, you don't want to pass out.
Like, no one's taking one entire step. Crawl.
I can't tell you how high up it looks.
Now look down.
No.
What if you fall?
Stop it.
It never does.
I'm done. I can't. Oh, I'm sweaty.
Well, the screams were certainly authentic. Yes, they were, indeed. You can find that arcade right by the Butterfly House, which is on Dan Patch near Underwood. It's $5 for that virtual reality. And I'm told that the one I did, Beat Saber, is new. It's the most popular one. That's what Tony Policano told us. And he also told me, Amelia, you'll be proud to hear this, you now hold the record for most screaming inside Walmart. So congratulations
Really
to
proud
you.
of myself. Thank you. Your situation was like a walk in the park over there. Now, I'm be honest, the video does not translate how realistic that virtual reality, like being up 66 floors. It
Yeah,
was
it's very realistic.
realistic when you put that on. Yeah.
Those were real screams. There's no doubt, no doubt about that.
Yes, they were. They were real screams. I will not back down from that. All right.
So what Amelia is not telling you there is the elevator does take you up 66 floors into the air. And we had a little bit of fun with the booth, and what we did is we actually put a infrared sensor right at the edge of the elevator platform. So the second you put your toe on that beam that's up there, we have fans that kick on in the front and start blowing a ton of wind at you. So it really goes that extra distance to help make it feel real. And I also want to share a story of that Beat Saber game with you guys here. I screwed up so bad when I was working at the fair. So Beat Saber, we had a TV mounted in the booth in front of it, so people walking by could see what was going on, and there was a nice big LCD TV. And I exposed a flaw in the system is what I did. It was Sunday night, it was 9 o'clock at night, we were slow. Hey Tony, can I try a round of Beat Saber? Oh yeah, go ahead, Ken. So I'm in there and I've got the 2 controls and I own this game at home, so I'm pretty good at it, right? So I'm just going ham on this thing, and boom, right into the monitor. I absolutely murdered a $700 TV. They weren't thrilled, but fortunately, we actually had another $700 TV because we cannibalized the video game out and back earlier that day. So we got to fix it, and I exposed a flaw in the system. So the next day we mounted a little ribbon in front of it, so now if you hit the ribbon when you're playing, you know you're getting too close. That was fun. Oops, sorry. Okay, so, but this is what you guys came to talk about, right? Virtual reality changing education. The cool thing about virtual reality is it's a lot more than just watching a movie, reading a book, looking up a website or something like that. It incorporates your senses: sight, sound, sound is hearing, sight and sound, and then it's going even further. People are working on haptic gloves that will allow you to actually reach out and touch the world. Teachers have the ability now with this to take their kids to places they would never normally get to take their kids. They can take them to the Great Wall of China, they can take them to Paris, France. And then what this also does is it cultivates curiosity in kids. It makes them start to ask questions about what's going on around them because they are in a more immersive experience. Now it feels more real, it feels more engaging. And the more engaged kids are, the more they're gonna wanna learn. And then this gives you perspective on other people's lives. I mean, this teaches you to be tolerant of other people, other cultures, other ways of doing things, other points of view. And it also teaches you to develop your imagination. You should see what my kids can do inside of a job simulator in VR. I mean, it's great, it's fantastic. I mean, just picture it here, you guys. Exploring a distant planet, climbing Mount Everest with Batman, traveling through the inside of the human body, or walking alongside a dinosaur. These are just some of the experiences that you can take that takes learning to new heights. I've done an inner body simulator where I can see how an entire inner body works. I knew nothing about medical before. I know a lot more about it now. Probably not enough to be a surgeon yet. I got to explore the space shuttle from the comfort of my own home. The space shuttle in the Smithsonian, and Smithsonian's all over this. There's a particular company that I want to talk to you guys today about. It's called ImmersiveVREducation.com. And these guys are on the cutting edge of educational software inside virtual reality. They have 2 games that are available for the PlayStation VR right now, the Apollo 11 simulator and the Titanic virtual reality exploration simulator. Apollo 11 is created using actual audio and actual footage from NASA. They went and actually got all this stuff, recreated the entire lunar module for you, and recreated the whole mission from start to back. You start in a living room listening to Kennedy's speech saying, "We are going to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard." And they finish when you're falling into the ocean and the parachute's over the lunar module, and you do everything in between, which includes but is not limited to actually being able to control the lunar the ship when it separates and grabs the lunar module and starts blasting off to the moon. You actually get to do that. You actually get to walk around the moon. Now, if you think about every picture of Earth or the moon that you've ever seen in your life, every picture has always been framed within a frame. To see the Earth unframed, floating outside in space, or to see the moon like that, and to see and really explore it and really get the grandeur of what we did when we went on our greatest adventure ever, is breathtaking. I can't even tell you. And Titanic VR is just as good. It's just as fun. You get to witness the sinking of the Titanic from the deck. And then on top of that, they built the entire wreck inside of this thing, and you get to use the actual submersibles to go and explore the Titanic. You get to put sensors in the Titanic, and they recreated all the hallways inside this thing. You can see the grand staircase, you can see the Turkish baths. You even get this one pesky director who's coming down to make a movie, and you have to help him with some research information for some odd reason. It's amazing, and it's so amazing I want to share a clip of Apollo 11 with you here, please. Now, I do apologize in advance. Whoever shot this clip, it was not me, got a little aggressive with the shaking when the ship's blasting off here, so just hang with me.
I think the momentous, most memorable thing that I can recall about that particular day was the opportunity.
Now, if you can, try to wrap your head around the fact that you see everything. This was a little creepy when I first saw it.
Rocket and the quietness, and see the sun come up and waves rolling in, and the evidence of the millions of people watching, but nothing specific, and just so quiet, and to realize that indeed such a contrast was going to take place. All the frantic activity preparing the rocket, but it was so quiet up there for me personally, and that in a very few moments we were going to be departing in a great roar for a momentous event.
I thought we had a 90% chance of getting back safely to Earth on that flight, but only a 50-50 chance of making a successful landing on the first attempt. There's so many unknowns in that descending from lunar orbit down to the surface that had not been demonstrated yet by testing. It's a risk-reward equation, and you're able to accept a level of risk so long as it's commensurate with the reward that you will get by achieving the goal that you're after.
T-minus 1 minute, 35 seconds on the Apollo mission. The flight to land, first men on the moon. All indications coming in to the control center at this time indicate we are go. 1 minute, 25 seconds and counting. Our status board indicates the third stage completely pressurized. 80-second mark has now been passed. We'll go on full internal power at the 50-second mark in the countdown. Guidance system goes on internal at 17 seconds, leading up to the ignition sequence at 8.9 seconds. We're approaching the 60-second mark on the Apollo 11 mission. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We've passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report at Fieldsburg, T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower clear.
Here we got a roll program.
Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on proper heading. Plus 30 seconds.
Complete and engine program. One rattle.
Altitude's 2 miles.
All over Houston, you're good at 1 minute.
Downrange at 1 mile, altitude 3, 4 miles now. Velocity 2,195 feet per second.
11 Houston, thrust is to go. All engines, you're looking good. Hi, Roger. You're loud and clear, Houston.
We're through the region of maximum dynamic pressure now.
11 Houston, your guidance is converged. You're looking good.
Set 8 miles downrange, 12 miles high. Velocity 4,000 feet per second.
Stand by for mode 1, Charlie. Mark, mode 1, Charlie. 1, Charlie.
Says Charlesworth taking a staging status.
This is Houston, you are go for staging. Tower north. Roger, tower. Inboard cutoff.
Inboard engines out.
I'm inboard cutoff. Houston, be advised the visual is go today. This is Houston, roger that. Yeah, they finally gave me a window to look out.
So that's a sample of what the Apollo 11 game looks like. The rest of it is just about as amazing. I would recommend not shaking your headset around so violently like that. You don't have to do it. However, virtual reality is great. It really is, but we're not there yet. We've got a long ways to go before this really becomes a truly futuristic, viable technology for us. Number one, currently the headsets are super expensive. They're heavy, they're bulky, there's so many wires. A full room is needed to be able to play virtual reality. When I do my PlayStation VR at home, I have approximately a 6 foot by 6 foot space in front of my TV, which means no coffee table for me. And it is really uncomfortable for extended play. I really have trouble hanging in there for more than an hour. On top of that, there are differences in people. If you look around this room, every single person in here is different. That means you all have different distances between your pupils, different shaped heads, different abilities or disabilities that prevent you from being able to be in this game all that long. Some people have to wear glasses and can't function without them. And the VR set does get in the way of those glasses. You can put them over the glasses, but it's not as good of an experience. And So I would say currently, virtual reality works best in small doses, but people are constantly growing the technology. More and more faster, better, more powerful headsets are coming out all the time. This is really taking off, and this really is going to be the future of technology, and it probably won't be too much longer, maybe within about 10 or 15 years, where going into virtual reality is just like that. So, we've come a long way in life. We have not invented teleporters like I had always kind of hoped we did, but instead we've invented a way that brings the world to us. And on top of that, VR is a lot of fun, and as much as I enjoy it, it's always important to remember that real life is the only place where you can get a decent cheeseburger. Does anybody have any questions? Please.
Can you get the Apollo 11 and the other game you mentioned, is that on Steam, or how do you
Oh
play
yeah,
them?
definitely.
Okay.
I've got it on PlayStation myself, but any VR set has them, and if you want them both, they're on sale right now in a bundle.
Oh, perfect. Do they give you any hand controls, or is that one just a visual
Apollo
experience?
11 is a controller-based game, and Titanic is also.
Okay.
So they're fairly passive on the gameplay, but the sense of adventure and this education that you get from it, I think more than makes up for that. And I got you there. Each experience takes approximately an hour to passively play through it. If you choose to actually play the game, you can play as long as you want. Please.
What's your favorite VR game?
Ooh, that's got to be Beat Saber, sir. The one I destroyed the monitor for. Oh, man. Any other questions? Please, yes.
Have you heard any incredible rumors about what the next hot headset coming is and what it could do?
There was one, and I apologize because I don't remember what the actual brand name of it is, but it was just released about a month ago, and I actually have a coworker of mine who got it and let me try it out here. And the thing that really sets this one apart is you actually strap the controls to your hands, which means they stick to your hands like this, and it reads your finger movements now, which means, well, I'll let you guys extrapolate from that what that means, but it means that I get to, you know, bird. Any other questions?
What was the name of that website?
InteractiveVREducation.com.
Does that cost anything?
Yeah, the games cost approximately $15 each.
What
Or-
about the classroom experience with the teacher taking the kids to the Great Wall? What kind of setup is that?
That would be a much more simplistic setup. That would be something like what's called a Google Cardboard, which is literally a folded cardboard box that you set your cell phone into, and these are readily available. And you just hold it up to your eyes like this, and you get little 360 videos and stuff. Yes, back there, please.
Yeah, I was asked about for integration with classrooms. Is it happening with the Google artworks? I'm curious that it seems your headsets are really cost prohibitive, especially trying to distribute them, say, 24 or 30 people in a classroom. So are they using it with that, or are they trying or trying different ways to experiment, or how is VR currently integrated in classrooms?
The integration is very limited currently. A lot of it is really happening at the Google Cardboard level. However, the price needs to come down on the bigger headsets so they can play with it. But then again, maybe it might be a little too video gamey, and you might not want kids doing that in school anyways. This is a great question, thank you. Any others? Please.
Do you know about any virtual training that's being used in the workforce?
Virtual training in the workforce? Not specifically as it pertains to like working at Thomson Reuters or something like that, but medical technology, doctors do practice surgery in VR before they're ever allowed to operate on a real person.
At my college at St. Cloud State University, I used to volunteer with the Biz Lab, and we had a contract to create a simulator where you deal with Alzheimer's patients. So you have various characters, and you have to do stuff with them. You have to deal with like interpersonal problems. So it's a simulation of working in like memory care.
Oh wow, thank you for that. Anyone else? Well shoot, thanks for coming guys. Really appreciate it.